He told me he felt like a failure with his hands in the sink, sleeves pushed up, water running like he wanted the faucet to answer for me. I could see the outline of his shoulder blades through the damp cotton of his shirt, the way his back tightened when he tried not to cry. "Raisa," he said, not looking, "I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I'm failing at work and here." I should have turned off the water and dried his hands and said we'd figure it out. Instead, I kept staring at the credit card bill on the counter. Rent, groceries, the vet visit, 2 subscription renewals I'd forgotten to cancel. And it was like his sentence floated over the numbers and landed on me. I heard my own voice come out clipped and mean. "If you feel like a failure, why should I treat you like anything else?" Silence. He shut off the tap. The last drips hit the steel like little exclamation points. He wiped his hands slowly on a dish towel and set it down like a truce flag, like maybe if he moved gently enough I would take it back. "Do you really mean that?" he asked. "I don't know what pride is exactly. I think it's the thing that makes you double down when you want to fold." "I mean, I'm tired," I said. "I am tired of cheering you on while our life slides." The worst part is that he was already fixing it the way quiet men fix things. One unglamorous step at a time. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't disappearing. He'd enrolled in his company's employee assistance program after his performance review went sideways in March. He'd met a counselor on Zoom every Tuesday at 8. He told his manager he needed 2 weeks of PTO to reset and had asked about FMLA if things got worse. He was doing all the normal, non-viral things people do when they feel themselves fraying. I wanted a montage. He brought paperwork. He took a breath like he could chew air and said, "I'll sleep at Kareem's tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." "Fine," I said, even as something inside me tilted. He packed a small bag the way you pack when you plan to come back. Phone charger, 2 t-shirts, the face wash I always tease him about because it costs more than mine. He left me the car because mine was low on gas. He left his plants because he knows I overwater. He texted from the elevator, "I love you. I just can't be your punchline and your partner." It would be easier to tell this like a single bad sentence ruined everything. It didn't. It was a bad sentence laid on top of 3 bad months. The startup he'd joined right out of grad school hired a new VP who thought move fast meant change everything at once. His small team turned into a big one overnight, then half of it was cut 2 quarters later, and the surviving half had twice the workload. He used to come home lit up about puzzles. Lately, he came home quiet. He'd say, "We should get ahead of this debt." And I'd say, "I know," and then I'd order takeout because the idea of chopping onions felt like an exam. I screenshot my mean line and sent it to the group chat like evidence. He said he feels like a failure, and I told him I'm done treating him like a king. The replies came in like candy. Naya, tough love is still love. Soul, sometimes men need to hear it. Nala, girl, he'll bounce back. He always does after you snap. He did bounce. But not to me. He sent an email that night with the subject boundaries/logistics/space. It read, "Raisa, I'm going to stay with Kareem for a while. I'll transfer my part of rent and utilities by the 1st, like always. I'm pausing shared extras, subscriptions, takeout, until I'm steady. If you need to reach me about bills or the apartment, email. I'm muting texts for now. I'm not angry. I just can't rebuild and defend myself in the same room. Please don't tell my family what I feel like. I'll tell them when I'm ready." He didn't block me. He didn't subtweet me. He didn't make a speech. He took my insult, named it what it was, and walked around it like a sinkhole he'd mapped in advance. He wins like that. Without a show. I tried to apologize the way I always do, in a rush, with too many words, face first into his chest. I went to Kareem's on day 2 with a bag of groceries and a 1,000-yard stare. Kareem opened the door, and of course he hugged me because he's polite, but his hug was the kind you give a neighbor during a storm. Not the hug that says, "Come in," just the hug that says the porch light is still on. He took the bag, set it on the counter, and said, "He went for a run. Can you tell him I'm sorry?" I asked. "I can tell him you came by," he said. It wasn't cold. It was accurate. I stood there looking at a fridge covered in magnets. Race bibs, a calendar with our names written into a weekend barbecue, a postcard from his sister in D.C. And realized I'd been stamping my crisis onto a whole ecosystem of people who love him. I wanted to yell at the magnets. I wanted to say I made one mistake and shouldn't be exiled. Instead, I said thank you and left with my bag of groceries because I wasn't going to cry in another man's kitchen. He texted later that night. Got your note. I believe you're sorry. I still need space. I stared at my own carpet and thought about how apologies feel like boomerangs when you throw them to someone who doesn't want to catch. Work got worse for him before it got better. They put him on a performance improvement plan in April. He told me over email with bullet points like it was a project, deliverable deadlines, weekly check-ins, documented progress. Even his pain has a spreadsheet. I wanted to reply, I'm proud, but pride from a person who called you a failure is like water poured on a drowned phone. Too late to help. His mother called me once 3 weeks in to ask if I'd heard from him. I lied and said I hadn't because his email said not to narrate his feelings to his family, and I was not going to break a second boundary in the same month. She sighed the way mothers sigh when they wonder if their children are okay in kitchens they cannot enter. Before she hung up, she said, Do you need anything? Not about him. About me. The generosity made my throat close. Friends are mirrors if you let them be. Naya came over and sat on my couch and said, You sounded like your father. I snapped that I didn't. She held my gaze and didn't blink. He used to call my brother a loser for getting a B in calculus. I once swore I'd leave any man I made small on purpose. I didn't leave. I shrank him and expected him to fit. By June, he was different. Not rah-rah different. Just steadier. He'd used his EAP sessions to grief dump the job he thought he signed up for and the identity he'd attached to it. He'd found a mentor in another department who coached him through the PP, bullet point by bullet point, until it became less guillotine, more guardrail. He started lifting with Kareem's run club at 6 in the morning because endorphins are free, and so is embarrassment when you can barely do a deadlift in front of strangers. He texted me from a new number once, quick. I switched phones. Please keep using email. Thanks. That was it. He wins in increments. I tried a grand gesture, because movies taught me those are language. I cleaned the apartment top to bottom. I framed the first photo we ever took, the one where he's in a ridiculously small beanie because it was trendy and my hair is in a top knot because I was trying to look shorter, as if 5 inches could disappear in a hairstyle. I made injera and shiro like my aunt does on holidays. Only half as good, but filling warm. I set the table. I put my phone face down for effect. He came by to pick up mail and the spare charger he'd left. He stood near the door like I was a neighbor and said thank you when I thrust a Tupperware into his hand. He didn't step in. I know it smelled amazing, he said, smiling, that polite, newly distant smile you give someone at a reunion. And that was that. He didn't reward the grand gesture because he was busy rewarding the small ones he made for himself every day at 6 a.m. 2 months after I called him a failure, his manager took him off the PIP. He emailed me a screenshot of the satisfactory progress note because of course he documented the end of the thing the way he documented the beginning. He wrote, FYI for shared budget planning. I'll resume subscriptions for the apartment in July. Until then, please pause them or move to your card. It was so clean and unemotional, I had to go into the bathroom to cry where the tiles wouldn't betray me. He didn't move back in. He renewed Kareem's lease with him and bought a used desk. He split the living room with painter's tape like a teenager in a movie. Half for him, half for his code, and not quite white bards. He brought plants there that he knew I would drown and kept them alive. He learned to make eggs poached instead of scrambled. He started texting his mom before she texted him. He took his nephew to the park and didn't check Slack once. He wins by building a life even if I'm not the audience. I finally wrote the apology that didn't argue with itself. No references to my stress. No footnotes about how money was tight. No but. I wrote, You said you felt like a failure, and I treated you like my pressure valve. I was scared, and I turned that into contempt. That's a thing my family does. I said I'd be different, and I wasn't. I don't want a meeting or a redo. I want you to know I'm learning the difference between honesty and cruelty. I am sorry for using your lowest moment to make a point. If you ever want to have coffee, I will meet you where you are. If you don't, I hope your life gets lighter every month. He replied 3 days later, short like a man who has timed himself on purpose. Thank you. I believe you. I'm not ready to meet. I wish you well. He didn't reopen the door. He just acknowledged that I knocked without breaking the lock to be polite. Sometimes I still rehearse the better line. The one where I turn the faucet off and say, it's okay to feel like that, let's plan 3 small things we can control. The one where I am the person I thought I already was. I can't unsay the sentence I said, but I can stop telling it to myself when I'm the one who misses a deadline, who forgets to switch the laundry, who gets a call from my sister, and lets it go to voicemail because I'm tired. Failure isn't a personality. It's a Tuesday sometimes. He ran his first 10K in September with the Run Club. Kareem sent me a photo because we haven't drawn lines like borders. He's crossing the finish with the face of a man who didn't beat anyone but didn't stop. His bib number is pinned a little crooked, which feels human in a way I hadn't noticed when I was busy calculating. This would be the part where I tell you we found our way back if the point was always reunion. It wasn't. The point is that he left the room where he was being graded for existing and found a different scale. He didn't humiliate me. He didn't parade my sentence through our circles. He didn't tell my mother that I sounded like my father. He started learning how to sleep without clenching his jaw. He pays his half. He waters his plants. He texts his nephew jokes. He meets with a mentor who told him the boring secret none of us want to hear, that better is mostly repetition. I don't know where we end. I know where we are. I'm relearning praise that isn't provisional, silence that isn't punishment, and apologies that don't audition for forgiveness. I signed up for therapy with a woman who keeps asking me, who taught me that tough and love had to be welded together. I'm not interested there.
I'm honest.
I thought telling a man he was failing would shock him into excellence. He heard me tell him I'd already put him on the ground, and then expected him to stand on command. He chose to stand somewhere else. He wins by not letting me narrate him anymore. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. He admitted he was struggling, and she used that moment to throw a label at him. He didn't fight or sulk. He set boundaries, leaned on counseling and EAP, documented progress, paid his half, and rebuilt quietly without making her the villain online. If you like this video, please subscribe for more. Thanks, and see y'all tomorrow.